Episode 21 of Cowboy Bebop. Boogie, Woogie, Feng, Shui. Oh man, sounds like a very fun title, and this is a lighthearted episode. But it does get deeper as the episode goes on. It starts with Jet, the ex-cop Black Dog himself, going to Mars to track down an old acquaintance, Pow, who sent him a cryptic message to seek the holy beast of Anzaha and go where the four gods meet. And Mr. Pow himself is one of the best feng shui masters. And if you want to brush up on your feng shui, here's some core principles you could try. Like most people, I've heard of this practice, but I've never really learned exactly what it is. It's rooted in the belief that the arrangement of objects and spaces can influence the flow of Shui, which is considered the vital life force or energy that flows through everything. Yes, many martial arts movies have been made about this, some being just the regular meditative practices and some going to the point where if you get the right Shui, you can move objects with your hands. Another reason I think this episode is so disliked is there's a lot of talk of feng shui, especially in the beginning of this episode. It just doesn't really connect as much for an American audience, but I like learning about this stuff. I would never go out of my way to start looking up Buddhist practices or ancient Chinese meditation secrets, but when they talk about it in a show and I'm just passively listening, I actually enjoy it. But it definitely gets a bit meta. So Jet goes to find this guy and sees that he's deceased and meets this girl in the graveyard of Pow, his daughter. And her name is Mifa. She's literally standing right where his tombstone is. And there's a little bit of a light romance between Jet and Mifa. He mentions that he's much older than she is, and they never actually connect or do anything sexual, but they hint at it, and when they go back to the Bebop ship, of course Spike and Faye make fun of them and pretend like they're a couple. But Jet mentions this is his friend's daughter. He has no interest in her. She's in her early 20s, and sure, he takes a few peeks once in a while, but come on. Mifa explains she hasn't heard from her dad in 10 years, and that he died in a transport accident on the way to Jupiter. We learn later that Powell wasn't exactly a great guy, and he was part of the syndicate. And halfway through is really when this episode starts picking up. They spend a lot of time talking about feng shui and what it means in their lives, and she teaches him about the chi of heaven, the chi of earth, and the magnetic chi, which comes from living organisms such as yourself. And this entire time she's carrying around this sundial that is sometimes animated, just like the rest of the episode, and sometimes they use CGI to make it turn in interesting ways. I really love it when they do that in this episode, and this CGI blends in way better than it does in other Cowboy Bebop episodes like My Funny Valentine, where it pops out. This one looks very natural. But I like both of the ways they use CGI. They find this moon rock and put it in between the sundial, or as they call it, sunstone, and now it opens up a new astral gate, and she gets to finally talk to her father for the last time. So while this episode gets criticized for nothing happening, we do get a space battle at the end. There's just not any well-defined antagonists. It's about Jet, this girl Mifa, trying to find her father. It's more laid back, it's more subdued. If you're into Eastern mysticism, you would get way more out of this episode. I'm still going to give it a 5 out of 10. It's probably the second worst episode, but as I mentioned before, I don't think there's really any bad episodes of Cowboy Bebop. And watching these in order, you can see why they would do an episode like this after the action-packed Pierrot La Fleur. Since after an action-packed episode, they tend to have a more subdued one where they're just hanging out on the ship. We also get to see another side to Jet. Last episode where main character was Black Dog Serenade. He was playing as a film noir hardened beat cop, and we got to see that side of him where he was kicking ass and taking names. Here we get to see a nicer side to him where he's interacting with this girl and also trying not to hurt her, since she keeps asking him about her father and he knows more about her father than she does, and finally he does end up telling him that he was part of the syndicate. He was trying to hide this information to not hurt her, and that's what I like about Jet. He is not at all like he's portrayed in the Netflix series Cowboy Bebop, where they decided to turn him into some Terminator monster that has no feelings and just growls the entire time. In fact, in this series, we see him more sentimental in most of the episodes than really being involved in the action like Spike is. He's older, he can kick ass when he wants to, but typically he prefers to interact with people and play with his plants. Boogie Boogie Feng Shui is the second worst episode, but still worth watching, which is why this series is so good. There's not too many references in this episode, outside of them talking about Feng Shui, but apparently the father, Pao, comes from Biopazi, a Taoist and Confucianist book. Yep, never would have got that reference either. Taoism and Star Trek, two things I know nothing about. and something Cowboy Bebop likes to reference a lot. And considering around 50% of people in Japan practice Buddhism, you can see where this comes from. No doubt some of the Cowboy Bebop staff was influenced by this. Maybe the creator himself? Next we get a wild comedy episode that also has a ton of action. Cowboy Feng, where Spike meets a parallel universe depiction of himself. He meets someone who acts very much like himself and doesn't get along with him. Check out our playlist for the other series we've covered. We've done Monsters, Fear Itself, Tales from the Dark Side, Black Mirror, Mystery Science Theater 3000, Pet Shop of Horrors, Are You Afraid of the Dark? There's a lot.